How do you think the whole thing was managed? Because this was not something that really could have been anticipated.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think the situation in Drogheda was anticipated. This pipe burst about a year ago. They knew there was problems with it, but they did not invest in fixing it. It got to the point where, when it burst again, they needed a piece to be created for them in Belfast, as we all know. But I think they have absolutely made a bags of handling the whole question of what happened in Drogheda, and they've made a bags of handling the whole water package, if you like, from and they really have been disgraceful, because tens of thousands of people have suffered as a consequence.
It's going to happen again, you know that.
It is going to happen again, absolutely, and the underinvestment is incredible. I was reminded when I saw Brian Cowan receiving his doctorship the other night as Minister for Finance during the good days of the Celtic Tiger. He often boasted about the excess money we had in the kitty. I think one year we had over 3 billion to play with, and at no point did he, coming from a party who had twice in the recent past faced the opposition to water charges from the population, at no point did they say, well, now let's invest in our creaky, leaking Victorian water
what was unseen was ignored.
Well, it wasn't really, because they actually cut the investment in the water infrastructure by something like 32% between 2006 and 2014. They cut it bit by bit by bit. They were depleting it, and I think they created a scenario where they said, now we need to charge us for water because we have such a bad situation. There's sewage going into rivers and the sea, there's people having to boil water, we've a leaking, creaking system. Now you're going to have to pay for it because
do you really think,
cut
that's
it and
a conspiracy theory perhaps too far, because the EU was telling us that, you know, the people, if you use water, you pay for it. If you have your sewage disposed of by the local authority, you pay for that service. That was the polluter pays principle.
I think we've moved on and have proved that the EU directive also said that whatever is the practice in that particular country, you can continue to maintain that practice, which was that water was paid for from general taxation.
I don't want to rehash that argument, because
but it's important.
You know that they rejected the notion that we still had a general taxation policy. The notion we had already introduced water charges, so that particular covenant was null and void, and you know that.
Yes, but the EU did not say to the Irish government, here's a big stick, I'm going to batter you over the head unless you bring in water charges. That we've proved that that's not the case, and in fact previous governments brought in parts of financial acts which allowed for the water infrastructure to be paid from car tax and from VAT. Certain percentage of the motor tax and VAT was to go to pay for the water infrastructure. I just always question, you know, when people come in and say, you know, we were paying for water infrastructure from general taxation, and I say, yeah, and look what you got. Exactly. Well, but that's not because we didn't have enough general taxation. That was a policy decision. I just pointed out to you the extra 3 billion that Brian Cowan bragged about when he was finance minister could have been used to fix the water infrastructure.
Right, that's history.
But instead they cut and salamied away the amount of money that has been spent on infrastructure over the previous 6 years.
Well, I mean, like in respect of the amount of money we thought we had in the past, it turns out we didn't. We were spending way beyond our means, and it was all kind of been artificially funded through transactional taxes that weren't going to last, e.g. property tax. So that's one issue. But the other issue, I mean, I'm pro water charges because I think the thing does have to be properly financed. It's clear historically it is never going to be properly financed at a general tax, because even when the times were good and we thought we had all this money, we weren't properly financing it. So I think in the same principle as electricity, you pay your electricity bill, there should be a water bill that you pay, and then over time we'll fix the infrastructure.
Emer?
Yeah. The 3 billion that Brian Cowan was supposed to have in his back pocket and money was a myth. That's why the economy crashed. So the money was actually not there. Owen Murphy said yesterday when he went to Drogheda, can't help feeling maybe a little bit sorry for him in the middle of that, trying to justify himself. He said Irish water was facing its biggest crisis yet. Irish water is the crisis. That is the problem, because the 178 million, which they're going to give back to us law-abiding citizens, even if they hung on to it, they wouldn't do anything with it because it is a completely useless, incompetent, over-bureaucratised organisation, and it's all going on people, not on water.
Yeah, the problem for a lot of people with the water charges was, I think there were two reasons why people reacted at the scale they did. One was they were sick to death of austerity. The other one was Irish Water. They saw Quango, hugely well-paid chief executive, bonuses, all that kind of thing. They said, oh God, not more of this. This is what we were told had brought us to our knees. Now, the problem here, of course, is there was no planning over the years. Even when the mythical money was made, even if Europe was to come back and say, listen, that cheque has bounced, we did nothing with the pipe network, some of which is 50 to 60 years old. So now we're in a situation...
I wanted to just put this, and Brid, would, I don't know, your political career coming up through council, the county council, I presume. Most of the politicians in Dáil Éireann came up through the councils where the responsibility for maintaining the water infrastructure rested. And it is a bit hypocritical when you hear elected deputies in Dáil Éireann who have been councillors in the past, when this neglect happened, to be given out about the situation we find ourselves in.
It was neglected to the authority level.
And we did, as a group of councillors in Dublin City Council, argue for more spending on the water infrastructure. So I would have a lot of friends. I think you met one of them once years ago in the library when we worked together, and you came out to do a quiz with the kids. I don't know if you remember that you were a young man then, I was a young woman. But some of those guys that were working with me are in the waterworks since. So you're looking at people with 40 years service, 35, 40 years service.
And they are working to Irish Water
now. And they would
tell
me regularly the problems that existed, and we used to bring motions to the council, but they were never adopted, because when at the end of the day, when you look at the role that councillors play, we do not and did not have any democratic say over water, over waste management, over housing. All of those things were removed and put into what they call executive control, i.e. the management controlled it. So local councillors could vote, as we did 3 or 4 times, not to have an incinerator, for example, and it was totally ignored because on all of those key fundamental issues for running a city, we had no power. And
so you're saying that the executive and the engineers and so on,
decisions were
who
taken,
knew and more than most would understand,
and the Department of the Environment, because this is a national issue. It's not just what happens to water in Dublin, it's what happened to water in Shannon.
I have to say this, I don't think public representatives, both councillors and TDs, many of the TDs, former councillors, can absolve themselves of total blame on this. I can never remember anybody standing up in Dáil Éireann or hearing them at local authority level and saying, there's a bit of money around this year, we have a nailing pipe network, we should spend money on it. There were no votes on it.
OK, Michael, you mightn't have heard us, but we did say that, but it would make no difference what motion you would pass.
And Brid, whatever about Irish Water and its inception and the bonuses and all of that, which was very unwise, as well as everything else you might throw at it. But the idea of getting all the local authorities under one umbrella, call it Irish Water, call it Uisce, call it what you like, the idea of being able to do it properly, plan a network across county boundaries, across city boundaries.
Sensible, absolutely and essential, actually, because this is a small landmass with a lot of water, but half of it being leaked away. A lot of clean treated water just gets leaked through the system. And if you look at what was spent on Irish Water, $1 billion between consultants, millions to send out bills, millions to put in, more than $500 million to put in the meters that were going to have to be replaced in 5 years anyway, and then the scandal about the metering contract that lay behind that. It has been, they've made an absolute bags of it. And I remember when John Tierney, who was city manager when I was a councillor, took the job, I said, best of luck to you. In an email I said, best of luck to you, you're entering the war department. And that's what it has turned out to be, because I knew, and everybody around us knew with a political nose on them, the population will not wear this. We have fought water charges in the past, and we could see Irish Water as being a ruse to privatisation, and they would have privatised had they not met the mass mobilisations and the ire of the people. It would have been privatised long ago.
And yet the bulk of the people were beginning to pay their water charges.
Not the bulk. No, that's not true. The bulk were not.
Oh, they were. They were over. What was it? 60% were paying their water bills.
It wasn't the bulk. It was a small percentage, over half, that actually paid. What happened there was when the government said, no, when the government said, it's not actually, when the government said, I'll give you a conservation grant of €100 a year. A lot of people applied for that, and they were listed as having paid their water charges when they didn't necessarily do. So that brought their figures over half the population.
But look, we had already seen what a cock-up, we made of centralisation with the HSE. We learned nothing from it, and we repeated this outrage by setting up Irish.
Centralisation of a thing like supplying water through a pipe and disposing of sewage through more pipes. It's a lot more simple than oncology and neurology and
electricity is centralised.
Electricity,
doctors,
the delivery of
doctors
electricity.
and nurses, yes, but not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, indeed thousands of middle managers with clipboards, which is what the money goes on.
Martin is a former councillor. He wants to know, did Brid ever put forward a costed budget proposal to the council? I believe that Brid merely shouted without providing a possible solution.
Well, Martin's right. I didn't merely shout. I argued for possible solutions. He's right that I didn't cost them. I wasn't that long there to be as expert as to cost them. However, we do cost our proposals for the budget in Dáil Éireann. We've a team of people working on it at the moment, and we've become more professional. Martin has to remember I wasn't long a councillor, and I belong to a small party, not a big outfit like Fianna Fail.
A lot of people are still paying water charges, group schemes, farmers and business owners. So how can some of your panel think that water charges have gone? Because they haven't for obviously that cohort. Edward in Dublin says, tell Brid that the likes of herself and Paul Murphy have some neck given their responsibility for people not paying water charges. I have a young family. I didn't like paying the water charges, but when people get something for nothing, they never appreciate it.
But we're not getting something for nothing. We pay a lot of taxation.
But so do the people who pay in local group schemes. They're paying their income tax too.
Sure, well, I don't think they should have to pay for their water. I never did believe that they should have to pay for their water. But that goes back to your point about having an overarching national body that oversees how all this was implemented. So you could go to Kerry and you'd have one type of national group scheme or local group scheme. You go to Mayo, you have a different set of charges. And it was a wrong way to implement a service and to treat people.
And the question of, and I put it to one of your colleagues the other day, Mick Barry, talking about socialism and water charges, that all over Europe the socialist parties all are in favour of water charges, that you pay for what you use. How come Irish people on the left are out of touch with their socialist brethren?
Well, if you want to describe socialist parties in Europe, what you're really talking about is the equivalent of the Labour Party, social democratic parties like the French Socialist Party.
But the huge, vast bulk of the people believe, and so does the extreme left in France believe in water charges.
I don't think that's true. In fact, I had some people over from Paris where they managed to this is a difficult word to say, re-municipalise the water services. They had been privatised in Paris. There was a major campaign to bring it back into public ownership.
But they're still paying.
But they're still paying,
rates.
but they're not.
Absolutely.
The people we had over, the campaigners we had over, thought that they're absolutely right. It should be in public hands, funded through general taxation. They don't necessarily love paying for water charges, despite the popular perception on the media and elsewhere.
David?
But sure, nobody loves paying for water charges. People don't like paying for electricity. People don't like paying for postage stamps. But you've got to do it, and there should be some kind of a user pays principle in respect of water, like there is in respect of electricity and stamps. And I think that's simply the best way to do it. Now, obviously, a complete bag was made at the setting up of the Irish Water Board, as you rightly explained, Brid, but I just can't see how you can get away from having some dedicated payment for it, ultimately, to fix the system.
There is dedicated payment through general taxation.
No, that's not dedicated. That's general.
You can dedicate, and they did dedicate a percentage of VAT and a percentage of motor tax to the water charges. And in 1997, after the major campaign which saw Joe Higgins first elected, there was a financial local government bill introduced. I have it there in my folder. To dedicate some of the motor tax and some of the VAT for water.
When there was going to be an excess charge if you used excess water wastage went down dramatically, and as soon as that threat was removed, it shot up again.
I don't know when you're talking about, Nima, because nobody ever paid them.
The charges.
I wonder where Leo is going to find the money for tax cuts given. All right, Ivan Yates will know. He's serving government.
You have to remember, water is wasted through the pipes that are leaking. We've spent $1 billion nearly on meters and bills and not fixed a single pipe.
We have
nearly
to draw
40% gets leaked.
Matters to a close. My thanks to Brid, to Michael, to David, and to Emer. One last comment on gender. Vincent says, if I go for a job in the civil service and I'm up against a woman can I change my gender?
Well, yes, he could under law.
Under the law.
That would be a career move.
Ivan, what have you got? What have you